Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and there are many things I love in life. I love Dungeons and Dragons. I love pina coladas. I love getting caught in the rain. I also love Magic the Gathering and Charlie, Moist Critical, whatever you want to call him. I love his YouTube content, and sometimes even watch his streams on Twitch is the only time I ever watch Twitch. And speaking of Dungeons and Dragons, Charlie, Moist Critical, and Magic the Gathering, we have an interesting little article here from MTGRocks.com. WotC, Wizards of the Coast, called out for being most delusional company ever in top MTG trending video. So here's the thing. I watched the video. I've not gone through this article, but I did watch the video because I have done one single video where I covered an article from MTG Rocks. It was my Magic 30th all over again, $250 for 6-card packs video if you want to go back and watch that. And that article alone from MTG Rocks, much like their name would imply, leads me to believe they're a bit of a shill company. They just sit there and suck off Papa Hasbro and just kiss his toes and lick his boot, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that was a one-off article, and just that one article ended up giving props to Magic for things it should not be giving props to Magic for. But we're about to find out if this article is also like that, if I'm correct in thinking that MTG Rocks is an absolute shill, or maybe they decided to make the right call and side with Charlie and many others like myself on this. Let's go through the article. MTG personalities across the community excitedly tweeted out across their social media channels that for what may be the first time in history, Magic the Gathering has topped the trending charts in YouTube. A recent video discussing the game, well, to be fair, he discusses the game a little bit in the beginning and then mostly goes on to talk about D&D. So this article already isn't looking good. The first minute and a half, 2 minutes, he talks about Magic. Then the entire rest of the 10, 12, however many, it's all about Dungeons and Dragons. Owned by the same company, Wizards of the Coast, Papa Hasbro, but it's about Dungeons and Dragons. So it's not even an MTG video, but I digress. Let's continue. In part is the #1 trending gaming article on YouTube as of the writing of this article. The content in the video, however, is not praising the ingenuity of the world's largest card game, gee, I wonder why, but is instead labeling Witches of the Coast as a delusional company following a series of controversial decisions. So, already, it sounds like they're about to start licking some boot, and I could be wrong. I'm going to reserve judgment for the end, like I said, but this is not boding well so far. Let's go through this article and see if we're about to encounter a new crux of fate here on the internet. Alright, so these are the tweets they're talking about in question. We finally made it #1 trending gaming video on YouTube. Like I said, I did watch the video. Have not read the article, but wanted to at least watch the video before I covered it so that I had all my bases covered. Moist Critical is one of the most prominent social media influencers in the gaming space. He's recently spent a lot of time discussing various scams and questionable decision-making from companies in the digital entertainment space. One of his most recent videos, talking about Wizards of the Coast, covers in his words 2 major fumbles they've had in the last month. Wizards of the Coast's decision for their Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons brands have received significant backlash from their respective communities. To be fair, they say their respective communities, and yeah, they probably are 2 different communities, but there is probably a good 70% of overlap. Really, it is the Wizards of the Coast community, one big conglomerate of gamers that are just throwing their fists up in anger and revolting against Papa Hasbro and Witches of the Coast. Both of these events were ones we've covered in the past, and while we only covered the D&D debacle recently, the MTG-related event was one we have covered extensively. Yeah, well, I don't know how well you covered it because I've only recently started doing this, but like I said, you licked a lot of boot about the March of the Machines stuff. I can only imagine you did so similarly with the MTG 30th Anniversary Edition. Like I said, your website is called MTG Rocks. It doesn't exactly leave a lot to the imagination when thinking about biases here. Before discussing the actual topic at hand, YouTuber Moist Critical identified his own investment in the brand. While I'm not a huge Magic the Gathering player, like actively competing in the MTG arena or anything like that, I did get into collecting the cards. Throughout all of 2016, I spent it trying to collect every masterpiece from Kaladesh set, and I do have that finish as well as the Amonkhet. I do have that finish as well as Amonkhet as well. So I was a big collector of Magic the Gathering and a big fan of the property. The 30th Anniversary Edition controversy has been kicking around for quite a while now, in Moist Critical's words, for those who are unaware of what may be the most controversial product in MTG history, this is what happened. Last month, Wizards of the Coast pulled down its pants and planted their stinky ass in the face of every Magic the Gathering fan. They announced the 30th anniversary set for Magic the Gathering. It was supposed to celebrate 30 years in the business, however, it was a complete disaster for so many reasons. And he is not wrong. I mean, I don't think at this point in time I need to go over Magic the Gathering 30. Everyone has covered it. Rudy has covered it. Smaller channels have covered it. Moist Critical has covered it. Asmongold has covered it. I mean, name any big YouTuber that has even a hint of the Magic space, or big Magic YouTubers themselves. They've all covered it. I don't need to here, but we can all read this quote and say, yup, spitting straight facts, Charlie. Keep on going. In summary, the most significant points of contention for the 30th Anniversary Edition are as follows. The packs themselves outpriced the majority of the MTG community at a record high $999 for 4 packs. You receive MTG cards that are not legal in sanctioned play for that record high price. It did offer versions of some of the most expensive cards in MTG history, which can be worth as much as $800,000 in their legal forms, according to sales history, but strictly as collector's items. See, right here, it sounds like you're making an excuse for it. It did offer versions of some of the most expensive cards in MTG history, like that's supposed to be some sort of boon. Like, yeah, that's a very, very cool idea, but they're not real legal playable cards, so we don't need to be spending $1,000 on a chance to get them. It'd be no different than me going and getting a poster of a Black Lotus and framing it and putting it on the wall behind me. It's not something I can use to play with legally. So just because it's offering a version of the most expensive cards, again, that you're not even guaranteed to get, that means absolutely nothing. So don't word it like it's some cool thing, cool chance. Finally, there's no guarantee that at this high price point you'll even open the cards you're interested in owning. This, among other controversy, even led to a scathing report on Hasbro stock from the Bank of America. Oh, I remember that. That was, what a beautiful time to just be scrolling through YouTube while you're working and realize, oh my god, it's happening. You get randomized cards, so you don't even really get the cards you want. You're still gambling on them for $1,000, so you could get an actual popsicle sticks in your pack, and you just paid $1,000 for it. Not only that, none of the cards are legal. You can't use any of the cards. They're fake. Again, that's a quote from Moist Critical. And once again, he is entirely correct. Spittin' straight facts, because Charlie don't miss. I mean, I say that, but frankly, I disagree with him a solid 50% of the time. That does not mean he is not great at what he does, and I still respect his opinions, even though I disagree with. They're usually well thought out and articulated, and even if they're not, he's got a pretty good track record of admitting when he's wrong. So, at the end of the day, it seems that these 30th Anniversary Edition sales did not go exactly as Wizards of the Coast planned. Again, you were just underselling it. Can you shill harder? It didn't go as exactly as Wizards of the Coast planned. They effectively shelved the product before it was even sold out. That goes so beyond not going as planned. Their stock dropped 40% last year, and this was their answer. $1,000 for 4 sets of fake cards. That is more than not going as planned, and they're still not course correcting, again, with what's happening with their new mini set, March of the Machines. Again, watch my video on that for the full breakdown, but clearly, I've not gotten any sense so far that MTG Rocks is not just a flat-out Wizards, Papa Hasbro, bootlicking daddy shill. What a sight. Oh my goodness. Many state that the success of this pilot product would have drastically changed the direction of Magic the Gathering as a game, and praise the community for their stand against such a controversial product. The community should have stood against this product. They did great in doing so. If you want to read more about the 30th Anniversary Edition, the links scattered throughout this section of the article can give you some more context. D&D licensing problems. Now, here's the real meat and potatoes. This is why we're here. Because the Magic stuff, that's old news. They already burned Magic to the ground. They're going to continue to burn Magic to the ground. So now they need to find out what to ruin next. And it's not like they have a whole lot of options. Because while they do have a lot of properties under their belt, none come near the caliber of D&D and Magic the Gathering. So if you're going to burn down 2 IPs, it may as well be your most popular. Because that's how you make money! In the recent fireside chat, primarily discussing the MTG brand, Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast representatives stated that Dungeons & Dragons are under-monetized. Yep, that's... Because of what just happened regarding MTG's 30th anniversary product, this understandably worried the community. The community's outrage here is warranted 100% because their idea completely shuts down pretty much everything that made this game so popular. Again, from Charlie, Moist Critical. While Wizards of the Coast owns Dungeons & Dragons, other third-party entities can make products and money that interacts with the IP. This is due to an open gaming license that allows them to create content under the IP. Because of this, D&D, as an IP, makes a lot of money that Wizards of the Coast does not see. But Wizards of the Coast still sees a hell of a lot of money. If what Charlie said in his video is correct, they make $100 to $150 million per year off of it. So yes, I'm pretty sure they're not exactly in the trenches, almost out of business, fighting for their lives, like World War I soldiers who don't know when they're going to go home and see their families if they even make it out of this desperate war alive. That's how Hasbro is treating this. Like, this is a war for their survival. And us fans, I guess, Hasbro is Germany in this situation. Just want to throw this out here. They are the evil dictators, whereas we, the fans of Hasbro, the fans of Magic the Gathering, the fans of Dungeons and Dragons, we're the good red-blooded Americans. And the other countries, I guess, that also fought in World War One. Who cares? Even if you're not American and you're a fan of MTG and D&D and you're fighting on this side against Wizards, you're an honorary American, damn it. Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro started to realize that Dungeons & Dragons, being their biggest IP, isn't super well monetized when you look at the actual nitty-gritty of it. It's estimated that Dungeons & Dragons has pulled about $1.3 billion, however, they only see around $100 to $150 million in revenue from D&D. According to these estimations, Hasbro only sees about 10% of D&D's overall profit in a year. The recent changes seem to be done in an effort to see more revenue from D&D IP. Yes, because that's all they care about. I get it. You're a business. You want to make money. But you don't want to value making money over burning your fan base, because if you burn your fan base, there's no one left to make money off of. D&D has been around since the 70s. I don't know when this open gaming license started. I covered it in a video earlier. It started in 3rd edition. I don't know what year 3rd edition came out. I believe the 90s. So it's been, 2004, actually. I believe it was 2004. So, either way, we're about 20 years in. And for the last 20 years, they've been doing fine. Wizards of the Coast has not had any sort of problems until recently. Their recent egregious attacks to make even more money when they have been doing fine is what is driving fans away. When they're monetizing things in a far more aggressive fashion than they ever had before. And we're also seeing quality drop. Quality drop, price goes up. Yeah, no wonder the people are turning away from Wizards of the Coast. It's probably in their best interest to keep letting individuals make this content, reap some money from it, because it will at least drive more people towards Dungeons and Dragons. If you're sitting there watching, your favorite streamer play D&D, or your favorite YouTuber talk about D&D or the characters they've built, and that gets you into it, and you go out and buy the books, and you buy the figurines, and you start painting them, and you start playing with your friends, Wizards is getting revenue from you going out and buying that. Yeah, somebody else may have been making money off of D&D's back that Wizards wasn't seeing, but them doing so got you into it. Because Wizards doesn't market D&D. When was the last time you saw Wizards market D&D? They don't. Stranger Things brought more people to D&D than Wizards has in the last 10 years. People started watching Stranger Things. It became the hottest show on Netflix, and then quickly started to suck. But for a while, it was the hottest show on Netflix, and people were like, oh man, what's this D&D thing that these characters that we love so much are playing? I want to get into it. Despite the fact that they were probably jocks in high school that beat people like me up for playing D&D, but that's not the point. Long story short, Wizards of the Coast wants to introduce a new license that replaces this open gaming license, an effort to, in YouTube Crit Crab's words, Crit Crab? Not familiar with that one, monetize the people who create their own content better than them. A new licensing agreement is in the works that will implement a bunch of changes. 3 things that you're immediately going to have to do is you're going to have to agree to these new terms coming out. You're going to need a badge on your work, and you're going to need to report everything that you're selling using the D&D property, as well as report all your earnings, like 50 grand plus. Moist critical. Man, it's the thing, it's not even like the gaming community upset at this. Tim Pool of the Timcast, they're talking about starting their own competitors to D&D and Magic the Gathering. Now, do they mean it as an offhanded joke? Yeah, maybe, but look at all the other things they're doing. They're creating coffee shops and skate shops and all sorts of community outreach things to replace failing businesses, or at least businesses that are aggressively mishandling their customers. So I wouldn't be surprised if after they've got some coffee shops up and running, after they've started making some sales on their skate products, that they really do start looking into alternatives that they can create for D&D and for Magic the Gathering. Both things that Tim Pool and Ian Crossland are fans of and have been noted to be fans of in the past. So when you've even got like prominent political commentators talking about D&D and how Wizards of the Coast is screwing people over, and these political commentators are talking about creating their own new game that's not going to be political, just going to be a competitor because people are fed up with this. You're alienating so much more than just the basement nerds that the stereotype thinks of. We're talking about good, in-shape individuals who spend their time skating and talking highbrow politics for way more money than I'll ever see. Probably not as much money that Wizards of the Coast makes, but for a pretty handsome sum, and even these individuals who want to sit there and talk about Trump and Biden all the time are throwing fits about Hasbro. That should send a message. Sure, this is irritating, but not really what the community is upset about. Any business making a ton of money in the space will now be expected to pay royalties to continue making content. January 4th, a journalist named Linda Kudega stated that they received the new OGL from a reputable unnamed source. You will owe 25% that exceeds 750k crit crabs. The community's main issue with this new license is Wizards of the Coast's new ability to, with 30 days notice, terminate the agreement with any entity as they desire. Well, it's not even about terminating the agreement, it's also about modifying the agreement. Maybe the article will go on to mention that, but it is about changing the agreement. So while they say currently, yeah, over $750,000, if that can be modified at any time with just a 30-day notice, they could drop that number low. They can make it $100. They can make it $1,000. They could up it to $1 million. They're obviously not going to do that, or 100K, whatever. They're not going to do that, but hypothetically they could. They can modify it at any point, as opposed to the original OGL, which was supposed to be this, that. No, that's it. This is the hard rules on the OGL. This will never change. That's why fans are trying to sue Wizards and Papa Hasbro. In the other video I recently covered yesterday, you can take a look at that if you missed out on it. But Dungeons & Dragons, there are fans literally looking to sue them because the original open game license had terminology that may mean that it can't be infringed upon. We'd have to see. Even the original vice president of Wizards of the Coast is very against this new model. When your original vice president's coming out and saying, yo, guys, bad idea, or maybe not original, but previous vice president is coming out and saying, hey, you're making a mistake, maybe you should listen to the guy. He was the vice president of the company for a reason, I would imagine. Let's get to the change that is by far the scariest one for the community. In here, it says that one of the caveats is the company can modify or terminate. They have can modify twice, I don't know why, or terminate this agreement for any reason whatsoever. Oh, maybe it's because it's a quote. Okay, maybe he stuttered. Provided we give 30 days notice. With this in here, it's like saying, okay, it doesn't really have to be 750k. As long as we give you 30 days notice, we can come swoop in and terminate this whenever we want. There's just no security. There's no stability for anyone that is making third-party D&D content. If all these leaks are accurate, if all these leaks come true, I absolutely could envision this being the end of Dungeons & Dragons. So yeah, most critical. That was I realized that was his quote about halfway through reading this. Like I said, I watched the video, but so that's he probably just stuttered. That's why there's two. I don't need to get into the English for it anyway. We took a much deeper look into this topic earlier this week. If you want to read more about it, you can do so here. Why is this happening? Here's where we're going to see if they're either licking the boot or stealing them and running away. Here's where we get to see whose side MTG Rocks is on, the right or the wrong side of fantasy history. While no one really knows for sure, Moist Critical gives the background before diving into the D&D drama discussed above, which was the main focus of this trending video. Hasbro's not doing so hot financially. They dropped 40% and they've had to cancel quite a few projects. It's well known at this point that Magic the Gathering is the single largest moneymaker in Hasbro's entire portfolio. Which is, again, insane. If you've seen any of my other Magic videos, I've brought this up. Hasbro has the rights to Star Wars toys. You're telling me Magic the Gathering, this semi-niche, at least compared to Star Wars, semi-niche card game, that, yeah, you can buy packs at Walmart and whatnot, but you're usually getting from your local game store or offline. You're telling me this niche card game is making more money than Star Wars toys. Like, that is how much of a moneymaker, I guess you could argue, either that's how much of a moneymaker Magic is, or how far Star Wars has fallen. Maybe a little column A and a little column B. The point is, when you have Hasbro not selling Star Wars toys, but selling these mythical, magical fantasy game cards, yeah, if that's starting to take a hit, Hasbro's going to feel some heat. But their response to this is just to shit all over the fans and ruin their experience. The people that, if they want to stay afloat, they should be trying to appease the most. They're only falling. Hasbro is only failing because they've done so much to upset their fans. And by continuing this trend, they're only going to continue their own downward spiral. I would imagine that now you're driving people from D&D. You're going to make even less money. Maybe the individuals from Critical Role move on to a different game. Maybe they'll decide to play Werewolf the Reckoning or Warhammer 40k, something else that they can attempt to monetize or maybe do their own thing. I mean, it's not even like they need to be doing Critical Role. They're all voice actors for anime, so they've got other projects they can do. I mean, there might be a cut in some income if that be the case, but the point is, there's a whole lot more to their business model than just D&D. So if you start making it to where the guys from Critical Role decide, well, we don't want to do this anymore because of what Papa Hasbro is doing, and that means Critical Role is not driving any more people towards D&D, then Wizards of the Coast makes even less money because now they don't have this fan base that was brought over from a separate fan base. I mean, how many people got into Critical Role because Matt Mercer is one of the best-known voice actors of the modern era? They're like, what? The guy that plays Levi from Attack on Titan has a Dungeons & Dragons podcast? Yeah, I'll check it out. Then they get hooked. And then after they get hooked, they're like, dude, I want to play some D&D. And then they go buy their own D&D sets. Wizards makes money. It takes some extra steps, but Wizard makes money. If you take out the people that are sending customers to you, customers won't come, you won't make money. You are just hurting yourself. How Wizards doesn't get this is beyond me. Or maybe they do get it, and they're just banking off of, idiot YouTubers like me or like Moist Critical not being able to have a big enough impact because, no one takes YouTube seriously. It's not the real news. So that's probably where it's at, but who's to say? Hey, post-editing Leon here. I actually just had a thought while I was editing this. Maybe this is actually Papa Hasbro, Witches of the Coast, playing some, 4th D chess, some JoJo's Bizarre Adventure style stuff where they're like, oh, I see what you're going to do, so I countered it. Ah, but I countered your counter, so really, now I know what I'm going to do and what you're going to do in response. Like, they say that politicians will, propose a 10% tax hike, when really they only want 5%, but they propose 10%, and then the populace gets outraged. 10% more taxes? What? And they're like, okay, how about 7.5%? 7.5%? That's still outrageous. What if we meet you in the middle? Say 5%. And they're like, oh, you know what? We'll take what we can get. Fine, a 5% tax hike is better than 10%. And then really, Wizards, or the politicians in this case, they wanted 5% the whole time, but they knew they had to stir up controversy. Maybe Wizards is doing something like that. They're going to sit there and they'll be like, okay, we want to start monetizing D&D more. How do we do it? Well, first, we get the fans really upset, and then when we get them upset, about this fake proposal that we're going to do, this fake leak, then we actually go out and we give them something. We're like, all right, we're still going to monetize it, but we're going to do it like this, so it's far less aggressive towards you, the fans. And then the fans will relent and be like, you know what? Whatever, it's better than nothing, and they just go about their merry way. I don't know if that's what Papa Hasbro, if that's what Witches of the Coast is doing, but maybe there's some 4D, I want to say 4D chess, but Hasbro wouldn't do that. They don't own chess, they can't monetize chess, so they're not playing 4D chess. Let's say they're playing 4D Greyhawk. But maybe that's what's going on. I guess we'll see. We have multiple reports of the game making over $1 billion last year in what was MTG's best year ever recorded financially. Dungeons & Dragons also had a lot of monetization potential, according to Wizards of the Coast. It's a shame that controversy like this is the thing that's making MTG trending across the internet. No, it's not a shame. It is a good thing. Lick that boot harder, you shill website. Oh my god. It is not a shame. If anything, this is the stuff that needs to be brought to light. Consumers need to know what garbage companies are doing with their products so they can decide if they want to continue to support said products or move on to something else, like Disney's Lorcana, even though I highly recommend you don't support that because Disney is just as bad as Hasbro. Or maybe they'll want to go to Flesh and Blood, or Pokemon, or Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, there's so many other options for both tabletop RPGs and for card games. Yeah, Wizards of the Coast is the biggest and they kind of dominate the market, but that does not mean that they're, we're beholden to them, that we have to stick with them. Like I said in my video yesterday, I don't even buy Dungeons & Dragons products. I haven't for a long time. I homebrew everything because I don't want Wizards getting any of my money. And I haven't for a long time. At this point, I've walked back my staunch anti-proxy beliefs and thought processes, and you know what? If you're a Magic player, proxy away, just to stick it to Wizards. It's hard to know what the future is going to hold at this point, but the community's perspectives on this matter suggest fans will not take this lying down. Not a single condemnation of Wizards of the Coast in this entire article. Are you kidding? Yeah, MTG Rocks is an absolute shill company. You do not need to support Wizards of the Coast. You do not need Witches of the Coast. You do not need to support Papa Hasbro. You do not need to get down and lick boot. You do not need to stick with Magic the Gathering just because you've been playing it for years and it'll be hard to learn the new rules to Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon or whatever. What you need to do is treat this like it's World War freaking I and get in the trench and fight back. Now, don't actually go out and firebomb the Wizards of the Coast, head offices, mainly because, you're going to get caught and then they're going to get insurance, to pay for it and they'll end up getting money that way. So you would really hurt the cause. Don't do nothing like that. Vote with your wallet. That's all I've got to say for this one. Vote with your wallet, stop buying Wizards products, and let Hasbro know that we are the fans, we are the consumers, we get to decide what we want, not them. We know what we want. I don't usually like the term the customer is always right, but as it currently stands with Papa Hasbro and Witches of the Coast, right now the customer is definitely right, and you better start listening. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you've got a different perspective on it, and if you do, I am more than happy to hear it. So you can let me know your perspective in the comments below, or you can let me know on Twitter at BoltTheWord, and I'd be happy to get in any sort of discussion with you, whether we agree or disagree. I like responding to the comments. I like responding to people on Twitter. So yeah, find me, hit me up, let me know. I'm really trying to grow this channel, so it would mean the absolute world to me, and we get more content like this, or other things that aren't necessarily Wizards related, you know, like Gina Carano, or Disney, or Star Wars, which I guess is part of Disney. But the point is, subscribe to the channel. You're going to get a lot more information about things going on in the nerdosphere. But until next time, this has been Words of Paradise.